Karen demands VIP table claiming to know the owner. But I'm the owner. And she was left crying with a $4 bill after my revenge. Karen strode into my restaurant like she owned the place. Her head was held high. Her blonde hair perfectly coiffed. And her nose slightly raised as if everyone else in the room was beneath her. I've dealt with her type before. People who believe that they deserve the world simply because they exist. But this Karen? She was about to experience a very rude awakening. It started like any other bustling Saturday night. My restaurant was thriving, filled to capacity with customers who had made reservations weeks in advance. We catered to high-end clientele, lawyers, doctors, celebrities, people who appreciated both the food and the overall experience we curated. My place wasn't just about good food, it was about the entire atmosphere, elegance, sophistication, exclusivity, and for the past few years, it had become the place to be seen. Word had spread fast after we received a Michelin star last year. But the secret ingredient that made us different was that we treated everyone, regardless of status or fame, the same. Everyone who came in respected our policies, well, almost everyone. As the owner, I like to make my rounds discreetly, observing without drawing attention to myself. I'd never been one for flash. My philosophy was simple. Let the restaurant and the people working in it shine. Not me. And so, most people didn't know who I was, which usually worked in my favor. Tonight was one of those nights when that anonymity came in handy. That's when I first noticed Karen. She was standing at the hostess station, a tight expression on her face as she glared down at Clara, my hostess for the evening. Karen's voice, sharp as a knife, carried across the room, and I could tell even from a distance that she was causing a scene. I don't care if you're fully booked, Karen snapped, eyes flashing with indignation as she jabbed a perfectly manicured finger at the reservation book. I'm a very important person. And I know the owner personally. I want a VIP table now. Clara, bless her heart, was holding her ground. She didn't look flustered, even though I could tell Karen's venomous tone was starting to wear on her patience. Clara was one of the best employees I'd ever had, calm under pressure, confident, and always professional. I'm terribly sorry, ma'am, Clara replied smoothly, her voice unwavering, but we are completely booked tonight. And unfortunately, all of our VIP tables are reserved. However, if you'd like to wait at the bar, I can let you know if anything opens up. Karen's face twisted into an ugly sneer. Wait at the bar? Are you insane? Do you have any idea who I am? I'll have you fired for this. She leaned in closer to Clara, hissing through gritted teeth. I said, I know the owner. Get me a table, now, or you'll regret it. From my vantage point, I could see Clara take a small, steadying breath, clearly determined not to lose her composure in front of this obnoxious woman. I could also see a few customers starting to glance over at the commotion. Sensing the tension, that was my cue. I calmly made my way over to the hostess stand, positioning myself between Clara and Karen. I didn't like to get involved in situations like this, most of the time. My staff handled things beautifully. But Karen was the kind of customer who was going to ruin the evening for everyone if she didn't get checked. Is there a problem here? I asked, my voice even and professional, though I made sure to let a note of authority slip into my tone. Karen turned toward me with a glare, her lips curled in a sneer. She clearly had no idea who I was, most likely assuming I was just another manager. I could see the wheels turning in her head, assessing whether I'd be someone she could bully or manipulate. And who are you? She snapped, clearly unimpressed by my simple attire. I dressed in business casual, blending in with the rest of the staff. But Karen obviously expected someone with more flash and flair if they were in charge. I'm the owner, I said, keeping my tone pleasant but firm. For a moment, Karen blinked, caught off guard. Her lips parted slightly, then quickly closed again as her brain scrambled to process the situation. But just as quickly, her face rearranged itself into an air of smug superiority. She didn't seem to believe me, or perhaps she thought it wouldn't matter. Finally, she said, crossing her arms over her chest as if I should be grateful to be in her presence. I've been trying to explain to your incompetent hostess here that I need a VIP table. And it seems like she doesn't understand the importance of that. I could see Clara bite the inside of her cheek, clearly fighting the urge to roll her eyes. I offered her a small, reassuring smile before turning my attention back to Karen. I see, I said calmly. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. However, I'm afraid we really are fully booked tonight. Every table, including our VIP section, has been reserved in advance. Karen scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. You don't get it, she said, her tone dripping with condescension. I know the owner personally. I'm a friend of his. So if you don't seat me now, I'll make one call and you'll regret it. I raised an eyebrow, amused. Is that so? Yes, Karen said confidently, her voice gaining momentum as she sensed what she thought was an opportunity to win. The owner would be very unhappy to hear how I'm being treated. If you don't seat me, I'll make sure you're out of a job by tomorrow morning. Do you understand? Clara's eyes widened in disbelief, and I had to fight the urge to laugh out loud at the audacity of this woman. This was going to be fun. Well, I said, adopting a more serious expression. If you're such a good friend of the owner, then I guess there's only one thing I can do. Karen's face lit up with smug satisfaction, clearly expecting me to fold under her so-called connections. She thought she had me wrapped around her finger. But what I had planned was something far different from what she expected. I'll get you the best table in the house, I said, keeping my voice smooth and controlled. You've made it clear you're a very important person. And as the owner, I certainly wouldn't want you to leave here unhappy. Her smirk grew as she shot Clara a victorious glance, practically gloating. Finally, someone who knows how to run a business, she said, raising her chin higher as she followed me through the restaurant. As we walked, I led Karen past several beautifully set VIP tables, each occupied by actual celebrities and high-profile guests. She practically strutted through the dining area, clearly imagining how everyone must be admiring her. Little did she know, most of the guests were either oblivious to her presence or far too engrossed in their own conversations to care. I could see the anticipation building in Karen's eyes as we neared the back of the restaurant, her excitement growing as she likely assumed I was leading her to some hidden, ultra-exclusive spot reserved only for the truly elite. But instead, I stopped by a smaller, more intimate table near the back. It was tucked away from the main dining area, close to the kitchen doors, where the noise of clattering dishes and faint echoes of bustling chefs could be heard. To top it all off, it was situated right next to the restrooms. This is your table, I said, pulling out a chair for her with the same level of grace and professionalism I'd offer any other guest. Karen's face fell immediately. Her eyes darted to the kitchen doors, then to the restroom sign, and back to the table. What is this? She asked, her voice dripping with disdain. I asked for a VIP table. This is the VIP table, I said with the straightest face I could muster. It's close to the action, right near the kitchen, and you have quick access to the restrooms. It's perfect for someone who's such a regular. For a moment, Karen looked like she was about to explode. Her jaw clenched, her fists tightened, and she opened her mouth as if to launch into another tirade. But I cut her off before she could get going. Additionally, I said smoothly, since you're such an important guest, I've taken the liberty of preparing a special tasting menu just for you. The best dishes our kitchen has to offer, no substitutions, no changes. You'll get to experience the finest of what we have. Her suspicious glare softened slightly at the mention of a special menu. Clearly, she was still too self-absorbed to realize I wasn't exactly rolling out the red carpet. The idea of an exclusive meal seemed to pacify her, at least temporarily. Well, she sniffed, settling into the chair reluctantly. I should hope so. And make it quick. I don't have all night. I smiled politely, gesturing for one of the waiters to begin. What Karen didn't know was that the special tasting menu I'd prepared for her included some of the most luxurious and expensive items we had on the menu. These weren't just your typical high-end dishes either. I was talking about the finest truffle-infused lobster, rare Wagyu beef cuts, imported caviar, and decadent gold-leafed desserts. The kind of meal that could easily set a person back several $1,000s. As the courses began to roll out, Karen seemed to relax a bit, sipping on an overpriced glass of champagne and making a few dismissive comments to the waitstaff as they served her. She still grumbled about the location of the table, but the food was evidently good enough to keep her quiet. Throughout the night, I watched from a distance, observing as Karen picked at her dishes with a mixture of approval and entitlement. She was clearly enjoying herself, but she also had no idea just how much that enjoyment was costing her. Finally, after several courses and a few more glasses of champagne, Karen sat back in her chair, clearly satisfied but still oblivious to the ticking time bomb that was the bill. When the check arrived, her eyes widened in disbelief. $4,000? She screeched, standing up so fast her chair toppled over. The entire restaurant turned to look at her, their conversations dying down as Karen's voice echoed across the room. For the first time all night, she looked genuinely flustered. I walked over to her table, raising an eyebrow as I glanced at the bill. Yes, I said, keeping my voice calm and matter-of-fact. You ordered our most exclusive dishes. The best of the best. Just like you asked. Her face flushed red with anger and embarrassment, and she spluttered, clearly struggling to come up with a response. She stammered. I thought this was on the house. I know the owner. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice so that only she could hear me. Karen, I whispered, a small smile playing on my lips. I am the owner. Her face went pale, all the blood draining from her cheeks as the reality of the situation hit her. She had no connections, no leverage, and no escape. She was just another customer with a massive bill to pay. And there wasn't a damn thing she could do about it. You can pay with a card, I said cheerfully, holding out the check, or we can call the police. Either way, that bill is getting paid tonight. Karen fumbled through her purse, her hands shaking as she pulled out a credit card and handed it over with barely concealed rage. I took it with a polite smile, nodding to the waiter to process the charge. As the payment went through, Karen stood there, stiff and silent, the smug superiority that she'd carried all night now completely shattered. When she finally left, she did so without another word, her head down, tail between her legs. The moment the door swung shut behind her, the entire restaurant seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. A few customers even clapped quietly. And I caught Clara grinning at me from the hostess stand. That, Clara said, walking over to me with a smirk, was brilliant. I shrugged, offering a casual smile. Some people just need to be reminded that they don't run the world. And as for Karen, I had a feeling she wouldn't be showing her face around here anytime soon.